A lot of young people have reached out to me to ask me about how they can be more faithful when it comes to saving and investing. And I keep telling them that I know it's so much pressure considering the society that we currently live in, especially if you're in your 20s or even early 30s, where you want to have fun with your friends, you want to buy that latest car, you want to have that latest dress, you basically just want to enjoy your life. Plus, the saying of you only live once, it doesn't even help in any way. So you are torn apart. I want to go this way. I want to save. I genuinely want to invest. But then you also want to go this way because I want to have fun. So I want to enjoy my life. And you're just torn in between. You're not exactly sure what to do. Now, if you're one of such people, I always tell you that you have to think about the future. Life is not just about now, 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 and what you can get now. There is a life after now. There is tomorrow. There is next week. There is next year. What would you want to do with yourself? Do you want to keep living from paycheck to paycheck? No, which is why I'm making this video for the 20-something-year-old, the 30-something-year-old who is not exactly sure how to discipline themselves in regards to saving. This video is for you. Hi guys, my name is Rachel from My Financial Oasis, your guidance to living the life of your dream. And today I am going to be talking about tips and tricks for saving and budgeting if you are in your 20s or 30s. Let's begin this video with budgeting. Now, just in case there's anybody out there who says they don't know what budgeting is basically setting aside money for different categories of expenses. So you set aside a certain amount. This money is for this money is for that, this is for this. And discipline is something that helps budgeting work. If you're not disciplined and you budget, you end up failing because you might have budgeted this amount is for this, but because you're not disciplined enough to say, okay, I have exhausted the amount here, I don't want to buy this anymore until my next paycheck. If you're not disciplined, you just say, oh, let me take money for this one and cover this one. Let me take money from where I put money to invest and pay for that luxury car or that luxury apartment. So budgeting and discipline, they work hand in hand. When it comes to budgeting, it differs from person to person based on what you do, how much you earn, your standard of living, your lifestyle. So there's no one way when it comes to budgeting. Everybody's budget is based off their person, what they earn, what they do, and all of that. Now, for me personally, I am a salary earner, which means at the end of every month, I know I'm getting a certain amount of money, and this is the amount I'm setting aside for my investment. This is the amount I'm setting aside for expenses. This is the amount I'm setting aside for other items that I want to buy, and that's just basically how personally I budget for myself. Now, if you're someone who is like a business person, or you're someone who is an influencer, or you're someone who gets contracts, your method of budgeting will obviously differ from mine. Because for someone who is a contractor, who doesn't get jobs every other day, that means when you get a job and you might maybe have to do it for like 3 months, you get your money in bulk at once. But if you don't have another job, or if you don't get another contract for another 3 to 4, 5 months, the money you got from that contract, you have to learn how to budget it so that it carries you for as long as it takes for you to get another contract. When it comes to budgeting, the first thing you want to do is to list out your income and then your expenses so that way you know how to divide it. Because you can't just be saying, oh, I'll budget this amount for this, I'll budget that amount for this, when you're not even sat down to analyze how much you earn, especially if you're earning from multiple sources of income. And you also have to write out your expenses. This is how much I spend on grocery every month. This is how much I spend on utilities. That way, you can sum everything together, look at your income, take out how much you know you can afford for saving or how much you want to save, and then use the rest to budget for your expenses. If you've never budgeted before and you're not exactly sure where to start from, what I would advise is that you take a look at all your expenses for the last 3 months, same as all your income for the last 3 months. This will serve as a guide to help you draw a budget for yourself. I am a traditional girl, and I'm not ashamed to say this. I usually do my budgeting on my book. I have a book for budgeting. So I just write down my income. This is how much I'm expecting this month. And then I write down the list of things I'm going to buy or things I usually pay for every month. and then I weigh it there. But if you're someone who is techie or tech savvy, or you're someone who is less traditional, then there are so many tools out there that can help you in regards to budgeting. There is one which I recommend, which is Mint. It would help you. So you have the option to put in your card, and then you can drop your expenses and then your income, and then it just helps you to take charge of your budget for every month. Also, with some of these tools online, you can easily account for where your money is going to, what you spend. Because sometimes you might spend money and you're like, but I was having this amount of money. Where did all that money go to? Now, if you keep track of how you spend, it's easy for you to trace, okay, this is what I bought that consumed most of my money. This is where the chunk of the money went to. This is what I did. And if you're able to account for how you spend, you feel, or at least I feel better. I feel like, okay, yes, I've been able to accomplish something good this month. Not when you're at the point where you're like, my money's finished. I don't know what I bought. I didn't buy anything. The money's finished. But you spent the money by yourself. And that's because you were just spending. You didn't have a budget. You didn't have a plan. Once this one comes up, you pay for it. Once that comes up, you pay for it. And that leaves you with nothing. Another helpful way when drawing your budget for your expenses is to categorize them into sections. So you have rent, you have utilities, you have transportation, you have money to dine out, eating out, you have just all your bills. Just put them into categories, not so that way it looks more organized. Not like you're writing buy a car, go to the salon, do my hair, cut. Just try to make it look as organized as possible, and that way you can easily allocate certain amounts to each category. Also, under your list of expenses, if you are in debt or you are supposed to clear off certain debt, you want to add that under your expenses. And then you say, okay, how much am I allocating to this particular amount I want to pay off? What you want to do at the end of the day is to know how much you are making versus how much you're spending. And that way you are able to determine where you are at that particular time. So if you're earning $2,000 and your expenses, by the time you break them into categories, is roughly above $1,000, that way you know, okay, this is the amount I have left, and then I can put this into my savings, or I can put this into retirement, or I can put this into investment. And it makes you accountable for every single amount you spend. I should also mention that a lot of newbies, when it comes to budgeting, make the mistake of just allocating certain amounts to whatever category that they deem fit. So you put rent and you say, okay, rent is like a fixed amount, so you already know how much your rent is. But if you pick something like grocery, and then you say, oh, for grocery I would allocate $500 to grocery. Meanwhile, you're not certain you're going to spend up to that amount. So the best way to allocate amount is, like I said, look through your previous expenses 3 months back, and then come up with like an average figure for each category. So if last month you bought everything you bought in terms of groceries summed up to $250, and the month before that it was $200, and the month before that it was $300, you get the average, and that is what you're going to work with. So now let's talk about spending. I know especially if you're a newbie, you might be confused, like I said earlier, about where to allocate what amount to, and how to invest, and how to do this and that. The easiest rule I use, or the easiest rule I advise anybody to use, is the 50-30-20 rule, where you allocate 50% to your needs, 30% to your wants, and then 20% to your savings. Now let's break that down. I have explained the benefit of the 50-30-20 rule in one of my previous videos, and I'm going to put the link here so you can also watch that. But basically what the 50-30-20 rule does is that it helps you personalize what goes into what. So you have the 50% for your needs, and needs are things that are extremely important. Things that without them, you will not be able to survive, or things that will threaten your survival if you don't have them. Those are the things that you categorize under needs. So you have things like your rent, you have things like grocery, food. All these are things that you would need to survive. So your health insurance, God forbid you're sick and you have to go to the hospital, you want to be able to pay for your bills. So anything that you can think about that if you don't have it, you are going to be threatened, like your life is going to be at stake. That's what you want to put underneath. So you can't put buying a new Fendi bag underneath. That is not necessary, because you can live without owning a Fendi bag. Now, the 30% that is for wants are basically things that we don't necessarily need. They're not essentials, but they help make our lives easier. They help give you a better quality of life. So an example is Netflix subscription. You want to go out to eat, you can eat in your house, but it kind of just improves your quality of life. So eating out, buying the latest bag, buying the latest hair, just basically things that you buy that will make you happy, although they are not essentials. That is what you categorize under wants. And now the last 20% is your saving and investment. So you want to put money in for retirement, you want to put money in for emergency fund, you want to put money in for a runway for yourself. So everything, so basically the 20% is for your future self. It's not dependent on now. I want to spend it now. That is you saving for the future. Now the last 20% goes to your saving. And under saving, you want to have things like pay off debt. So if you took out loan for whatever purpose and you have to pay off the debt, that is where that money comes from. Then I will also advise anybody, I always tell people to save for emergencies, because when emergencies arises, you are never pre-informed. And you want to have something to help cushion you when those days arises, because they will come. You want to save for emergencies. You also want to save for retirement. It's essential. It's important. And now that you are young, you start to save for retirement. You save for your future self, for when you will not be able to work. Now, for an emergency fund, it's advisable that you start with 3 months worth of savings and then slowly work your way up to 6 months and then up to 1 year of saving, because anything could happen. You could lose your job tomorrow. You could become involved in an accident and you're unable to work. Just anything can happen. And you want to be able to take care of yourself for at least a year. So that is something that you have to consider alongside saving for retirement. And for the people who are not exactly sure when to start saving for retirement, now is the time. In fact, you should have started saving for retirement yesterday, because the earlier you start to save for retirement, it gives you a head start. That way you save more. So imagine you start saving for retirement at 21 and then you don't retire till you're 60. You have over 30 years of saving to take care of yourself with when you're old. So your future self will absolutely thank you for that. Another beautiful thing about retirement is that it's based off compounding interest. So like I always say, compounding interest is beautiful. According to Albert Einstein, it's the eighth wonder of the world, and he's absolutely correct. And what does compounding interest do for you? Let me give you a literal example. So if at the end of the year, you put $8,000 in your retirement fund account, and then you agreed on 10% as the amount that you earn on interest for every $1,000, that means you've earned $100 added to your $1,000, which sums your money to $1,100. Another 10% is charged on the $1,100. And then if you add more money into that account, it just continues to grow like that. So you see why compounding interest is wonderful. There are different retirement fund accounts that you can have. If you are working for an organization or with an organization, you most likely would have a 401k. I've talked about this in my previous video also. Your company takes a certain amount from how much you earn, and then they match it for you, and then that sort of doubles what you earn in terms of retirement. But if you are a business owner, you're someone who doesn't work for an organization, you work for yourself, you can open a retirement account for yourself, which is the Roth IRA. You can say, I want to open a Roth IRA account and I want to start saving for retirement for myself. Another way to help people who are not so disciplined when it comes to budgeting. I know some people will make their budgets, but in the middle of the month, they start to spend more than what was agreed or what was budgeted, which, like I said, still boils down to discipline. If you're someone who this is a problem for, there's a traditional method that I saw my parents use and that I also use sometimes, and I would advise anyone to do that. So it's basically having different cash envelopes for different categories. So if you budgeted $1,000 for your expenses, all you have to do is withdraw that money and then arrange them into little envelopes for different purposes. So if out of the $1,000 you're supposed to save $200 for rent, you take out $200, put it in an envelope and tag it rent. You put that aside. If you budgeted $250 for grocery, you take that, put it into the envelope for grocery and tag it as grocery. Now what happens is, once you exhaust the money in that envelope, you are not going to be able to get anything else. You have to wait till your next paycheck. This forces you to be disciplined in terms of budget. It helps you to stick to the budget that you drew for yourself at the beginning or at the end of the month. By the time you keep doing this, over time, you become more conscious, become more disciplined, and then you're like, oh, I spent $250 last month. I can even spend lesser. Like, you start looking for ways to even reduce what your expenses is, because you're now more financially conscious of what you do with your money. Now let's talk about saving. Like I just mentioned, the more you start budgeting, or the more you become good at budgeting, you start looking for other areas you can cut down on your cost and save more. So like me, I like to make my hair. I always like to look good. I always like to, basically, I spend enough money when it comes to hair. Now, what I told myself at some point is I can't keep spending so much money on hair. So instead of going to the salon every other week or once in every 2 weeks, I decided to cut it down to going to salon once a month. And then the rest of the week in the month, I do my hair myself. This has helped me reduce how much I spend when it comes to salon. So it all depends on you, on individuals, and what you like to spend money on. You can just, if you're the type of person who likes to eat out a lot, you can sit back and say, okay, instead of going out every other night or every other day to eat out, I'll reduce it now to 2 times a week. And that's how you begin to cut back on things, which helps you to save more. Okay, so let me mention this before I would come across as someone who doesn't want you to have fun, who doesn't want you to enjoy your life. So you just have money sitting in your account and you need to do this, you need to do that. But because you're trying to save, you now become boring. No, that's not what I mean. So if for whatever reason an expense that was not in the budget comes up, you can decide to take out money from somewhere to pay for that. But I would strongly advise that you do not go to money for your savings to cover for that expense. So I'll give you a literal example. If suddenly you need to get something, maybe you need to buy a new swimsuit, for example, and that wasn't in the budget, you can take out money that you set aside for maybe eating out. You could cut down eating out to, okay, if I budgeted eating out twice a week this month, I would reduce it to once a week in the month, so that I can take out money from that section to pay for something else that I need, like ASAP. So I'm not saying don't enjoy your life. I'm not saying become boring, but just take charge of how you spend your money. Also, another way to help you to stay focused and stay on track is for you to have goals and dreams that you want to accomplish within specific time. So if you've told yourself that I'm currently 21, I'm currently 25, and by the time I'm 30 or by the time I'm 35, I want to have a house of my own, and then you start putting money aside for that. When other expenses come that are not as important as that goal that you have in mind, you would be very reluctant to take money out from your savings to cover for that expense. This is something that I do very well. So I tell myself, I'm saving for this purpose. This expense, whatever it is it bigger than what I'm saving for? Will it supersede it? Or so just basically ask yourself questions like that. That would help you become, like, you would think about it before you make that decision. And if you do make the decision of going to your savings to take any amount out, you are doing it, you're making that decision consciously. You have thought about it, you've thought it through, and you're like, okay, I really need to do this. Not just, I heard that there is a new car out there, let me just go and buy it, and just lavishly spending money that you do not have. Because a lot of people see celebrities that they follow, they see celebrities, they see how they live, and they try to live up to their standard because that's who they are modeling after. But a lot of the time, what we see on the ground, what we see on social media is far from what the truth is. So everybody has to live their life based on what they have at the moment. What is your reality at the moment? So let's do a quick recap. When it comes to saving and budgeting, you have to define what is need and want. You have to be specific and you have to be true to yourself. Also, you have to determine what your goals are. You can't keep living your life based off what other people are doing or what you see people on social media or people who are role models see how they live their life. Their goals might not be the same thing with yours. So you have to live your life based on your goals, based on your reality, and based off what you want to achieve on the long run. Now, I hope that you have learned something from this video, and I hope it helps you take charge of your finances, take charge of your budgeting, take charge of your life and your future self. If you've watched this video up to this point and you've enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up so that I know that you really enjoyed it and you've learned something from it. Also, if you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button so that you become a part of my family. Turn on your post notification bell. That way YouTube personally notifies you every time I drop a similar video like this. And let me know in the comment section which of these points I have listed that you have tried and if it has worked for you. And remember, your financial freedom begins with you. Bye. See you in my next video.